Alright, welcome back to the July monthly final for the Red Bull Wololo Legacy Tournament for AoE4, and we've got ZertoN in the red trunks on the French up against DivineDFP in the blue trunks on the French, and we're here on Dry Arabia. Players chatting to each other, but I can't actually see what they're saying. Bit of a shame. Should actually probably chuck this on.
Fake. Ascolto. Very cool.
The players just mostly going to be focusing on their food ecos to start with, as is the way on these sieves. Let's start on their gold ecos now.
What?
It's going to be the fastest of early games this game, compared to what I've been sitting through with Tiny and Deathmatch. But the players playing Supremacy today, just chilling, which is the way it is in all the Supremacy and all the games. Sorry guys, don't hate me, I'm a Tiny and Deathmatch player. The French mirror player is eager to get all the sheep they can find here. Come down to early night control, and then whoever can look at sneaking in a quick second town centre behind it, I believe. And then should it go on longer than that, whoever can make a transition into ARBs. More sheep being found by our players. Age ups right on cue. So 4 villages apiece on these starting landmarks. So they're both desperate to get the initial night advantage, I believe. Because I mean, players can often often build the landmark with only 2 or 3 villages when trying to go for more conservative builds. But when you're trying to go for that instant night harass or night v night clash, it's really worth trying to make sure you can get it out with 3 or 4 villages. You know, maybe not as many as say the Arch and Chapel or the Golden Gate, where you'll go with like 6 to 8 villages sometimes even. Because you still want to be able to have the food and the gold to actually field that first night, which is also another factor in why they get it in the time that they do. So scout harass, sorry, by ZertoN's scouts on the vills, because it does slightly mess with their gathering. It does get them a little low and prime for the taking by a knight, because if they do fall below half health, they're just going to get one shot by a charge. Players just microing the scouts for a bit here. So DFP trying to go for this around here. Both our players really risking it with a super low scout at the moment. The villagers for now can breathe a sigh of relief on DFP's side of the map. Both the players Field in their first night, ZertoN's marginally quicker. It's not really going to make much of a difference. ZertoN finding the last of the sheep in this little pursuit, actually. So it ends up being quite handy for him that he's running away like that. There's somewhere that he hasn't actually explored, because he's net himself 3 of the last sheep on the map. It's probably the last cluster of 3 closed sheep anywhere on the map at the moment. DFP opting to try and wall up to start with. And ZertoN again attempting to check the gold mine. And he's just figuring out where DFP's knight is for now. I don't think the scout's really going to be susceptible to being picked off with the charge. So barracks stables for ZertoN here, while DFP really walling in his gold mine. He's sort of worried about ZertoN's crazy high level multitasking and unit control. He's honestly probably the second most talented RTS player I've met, behind the Mister. The pair of them, just absolute machines. Like, in a way, I sort of rate them above like all the StarCraft and AoE2 full timers, because like these guys just can play anything at the top level, literally anything. They and Recon are probably, yeah, like the 3 most flexible RTS players I know, if that's a thing. Because between the 3 of them, you're talking like the best player of pretty much every indie RTS to have crashed and burned in the past 4 years, as well as like every AoE game other than 2 and 4 and 3. And they're also, you know, 3 of them are also quite strong at the 3 of them as well. But anyway, fanboying about the top level of AoEO and their pursuit in dominance in yet another RTS aside, which I'm sure the AoE 3 casters and the StarCraft and Warcraft casters do a little bit about their mates. Sometimes. Mostly on their unofficial streams than the main one. That aside, DFP mounting a good number of knights behind this, and he is going to go for a second town center. Pretty early, he's going to go for double knight production against ZertoN's spear knight production, while ZertoN not rushing towards a second town center at all at the moment. He's just looking to try and bait DFP into fighting his knights, which he can't really stick around and do, but he's just pressuring DFP into really continuing to sort of slowly go for the fast eco expansion, if that makes any sense, because he's gone for the second stables. He's really walled himself in, while ZertoN for the minute is going for his own chivalry and massing up a good count of spears. So DFP is going to have to transition into a range or go to H2 or something to have to be able to deal with the spears here. Having this quicker second town center might really work in his favor though. Like, he's going to have double build production much faster than ZertoN at the moment. And ZertoN's also sort of doing the same thing with the defensive play before eco in a sense. He's gone for the spears. He's walling himself in. He's started gathering berries opposed to worrying too much about hunt. And yeah, he's not going for any stone just yet. So players not looking to underestimate each other. They're both quite fearsome players. DFP really making him a name for himself in AoE 4 already. Playing in both the high level tournament circuit, doing reasonable, and being fairly dominant in the minor tournaments like TWC and DCCS when it was still running. He's continuing to try and wall himself in. So it ends up being quite a short game in the end. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes wrong for somebody here. I'm not going to spoil it if you're just tuning in live or tuning into the replay video without having checked the results. So DFP is really the one that's being, I guess, enticed into overcommitting almost in defensive output here. Like, it's walls are cheap, but when you're getting this many of them, it does start to add up, and it is costing you a little bit of build time the whole time. So even with second TC pumping out extra bills, it hasn't started to yet really pay a dividend. And even with double stables night production against single, ZertoN's able to actually get off a nice charge and force out more defensive output with towers, outposts coming down. This comp is actually quite scary for DFP in the sense that he's got mass knights off 2 stables, so yes, he might have the slight advantage when it comes to the knights count, and he does also have that blacksmith over ZertoN, so he does have free bloomery, but there is this little wall of spears for ZertoN, and he can apply the pressure with that. He's taking the hunt now. Hasn't gone for either of his food techs behind this. He's just more worried about applying the pressure, forcing a mistake. DFP towering up next to both TCs. He really wants to be able to maximize his garrison and static defense potential. Because, I mean, even though it's just arrow fire, having that little bit more of it can mean life or death in a close situation. You can really pick off that last couple of knights a little bit quicker, or really force the spears to not engage, more or less, into the tower. They can't just into the town center. They can't just stand there and, you know, cheap melee is actually really cost effective in taking out structures. Like, if you haven't got siege, it's the next best thing. Cavalry, while it does travel around faster and it'll engage units attacking them for more damage, 1-to-1 it's more expensive to actually field a lot of it to actually take down structures early. So, you know, spear balls or spear mounted arm balls are probably the best thing until rams are on the field for trying to clear out. And with that in mind, these towers and, you know, even next to the primary town center, really good way of preventing that. As we can see, ZertoN mostly trying to catch villages on the way in, just to really make this push worth it, because if you can snipe some of the eco before the fight even takes place, he's going to have to try and get his spears, focusing the knights as well. He doesn't want to bleed too many of his own knights. He split them off to try and focus on archers, but DFP also, he's not stupid. He's going to completely ignore the spearmen with the knights. He'd much rather get a round of healing off or try and re-engage on ZertoN's knights and face those spears. Men with pointy stick hurt, and they hurt the most expensive melee age 2 unit a lot. So both players with chivalry, gonna really have to be very handy for the pair of them. But it does look like ZertoN once again forcing DFP to have to repair the wall. So it does cost him a little bit more, you know, gather time and resources. So ZertoN on 50 and 29 to DFP's 46 and 19. So even with the 1 TC v2, ZertoN's actually got a small Vil lead here. He's actually managed to give himself a bit of a buffer in this game, which is great for him and not so great for DFP, but DFP does have that quicker armory. ZertoN has got his own armory now, and he's actually had to get ranged armor because of the towers and because of the bowmen, so his melee v melee comp is actually lacking the melee armor now. So another stables he built for ZertoN. It's interesting to see him not go for a second TC at all. He's actually distance gathering this wood quite a bit. But need not matter. He can always just transfer these vills to the closest trees here for a little bit longer. even adding houses in the way. But it don't matter. But what might matter is DFP with some solid micro focusing down his spears now. He's going to have to try and engage Knight to Bowman and Spear to Knight, which sounds easy, but it's not. Bow's actually being stop commanded there, just outside of range. Unfortunate for DFP, he didn't get one last volley off. ZertoN going for this board just outside of DFP's base. He knows if he can basically keep applying pressure here, he can probably steal this and reap the benefit. A great hunt eco. At the same time, he's raiding DFP's expansion onto this hunt, so it's going to lock that up for a little bit. DFP sending just everything to come and deal with the melee ball of ZertoN. Again, applying pressure with Knights all over the base. So sniping another worker over here, and he's torn a hole in DFP's walls now. DFP 57 vills and 29 military to ZertoN's 57 and 37. So DFP's caught up and will surpass ZertoN in the worker count soon, but military count slightly favouring ZertoN here. So, Knight control to basically guard the spears here. Top notch by ZertoN, but at the same time DFP able to single out individual spears and pick them off and really force ZertoN to have to retreat. Neither player overextending with their Knights there at all. It's great micro from our players. DFP in the meanwhile going to add his ranged damage upgrade because he's starting to get a good critical mass of the archers, where if he gets the range damage before ZertoN can take H3, they actually start to be reasonably useful against the Knights once the spears are all dead. Like, you're never going to focus Knights before the spears, but at least that way they can really support his Knights a little bit once it gets down to, you know, just his Knights and bows v just ZertoN's Knights. Which is sort of the idea here, but this is a little punishing to lose this because he's going to drop the vills. At the same time, ZertoN going to disengage with that single Knight, take out the tower as best he can. He's going to try and focus the archer ball, and he's going to get a couple of good kills here. This time DFP is going to interrupt with his Knights. DFP going to be able to retreat to the safety of his base at the moment, but not before losing a couple more Knights by the looks of things. ZertoN attempting to try and steal this out of berries, but he's going to drop the villager that he sent across the field to do so. The beauty of this is he's really cutting DFP off outlying food and French. With a composition like this as one of the most food heavy civs in Age 2, you know, it's going to be ages before you get to Castle Age and get to using, you know, Castle Age farms. And you're really going to need that gather rate with a comp like this. So ZertoN now attempting to steal both the hunt and the berries. DFP might be able to pick off these vills, but ZertoN quick on the villager micro. DFP again, trying to focus down the vills, but ZertoN taking out the outpost. He's now going to worry about engaging, and the bows overstepping things a little bit here for DFP, so they are all going to get picked off by ZertoN's Knights, and now ZertoN able to get the engage he needs where the bows can't really deny any spears. If he engages Knight to Knight, he just pulls them back and has spears slip in the cracks, really turn the fight in his favor. So DFP now needs to either really double down on getting more archers to clear this out and just a huge Knight count, or even just slipping in some of his own spears, or even trying to get to castle from behind this. He's going to go for a little bit more stone. Have to wonder what he's doing here. Maybe castle, after, maybe a keep after he castle ages, but I don't know if he's going to get there. A few idlers as well. He's going to have to get out of here. Ooh, actually rallying the wrong way there. ZertoN picking off 2 or 3 of them, disengaging. Looking rough for DFP. ZertoN 71 and 45 to DFP's 65 and 21. So even with the 2 TC advantage, it's been rough. Oh, sorry. ZertoN's added a second TC behind this. So DFP is struggling for air now. His night count, I think, has actually been surpassed by ZertoN's 21 to 34. Yeah, it has. So that plus the fact ZertoN's still got the spears. DFP can't actually take a direct engagement and stick around. He's basically relying on baiting ZertoN under the towers, getting a charge off and backing out at this point until he can get either some of his own spears or get a bigger night count at this point. And ZertoN relishing in the opportunity to deny a bit of gathering, take out some of these defensive structures and some of these production facilities. DFP hurriedly getting some more down, but you know, it's inefficient to have built